grandsons, 4 granddaughters, and 4 great-grandchildren. He left a legacy. And hopefully, time will prove a strong legacy. Who was this man? Well, early in his life, he was very mechanically inclined. I think it was age 2.5, he was reported he was found wandering around the streets of Evanston. They took his crib apart using a pacifier and a broken baby bottle and he was walking around like that. But seriously, he did at age 15 built his first engine in the basement of his house. Imagine how happy his dad was running that, thinking the fumes coming up through the laundry chute, which we boys were very familiar with. His first job was at a service station, and it was connected to that service station where he actually met Mom. For those of you who are young and don't know what service station means, it doesn't mean slushies and beef jerky sticks or whatever. It means they went out and they had little bow ties on and they cleaned windows. And obviously Dad didn't like cleaning windows because afterwards he never cleaned one. That was honest. But he checked the tire pressure, oil pressure, and I think as importantly for him, he interacted with people. And if you know anything about my dad, he was a people guy. And I'm sure he loved that. I can just imagine him harassing everybody as a young man. After he graduated high school, soon thereafter he went to the Air Force. It was during the Korean conflict. He was a mechanic there too, go figure. Spent a lot of time in Alaska. He absolutely loved Alaska. While he was there, he worked on all kinds of vehicles, snowcats, big tractors. He worked on equipment that got stuff off cargo planes. He flew around in de Havilland Otter, like kind of a small utility plane, hunting moose from there, trying to anyways, he said. And he took a lot of pictures. In fact, those pictures turned into the world-famous Alaska slideshow. And so if you've ever been to his house, chances are you heard the words, "Would you like to see the slides?" And we did, and we loved them. That was a key part of our family. It was a bonding thing. We were just talking about that just the other day. And he recounted stories of him sleeping with dogs on top of him and hunting moose. And you look at the board over there, some pictures of him from those days. When he got out of the Air Force, moved into, originally, I think, by George Air Force Base. He worked there at least. And then moved to the San Fernando Valley. And then he worked in various jobs as a mechanic. Ultimately, 40-plus years, ended up in business for himself, and he retired in 1995. He was a technical master. By the way, I only have about 26 pages in notes, so you're safe. Life with Dad was interesting. He loved to laugh. He loved to tell stories. He worked hard. And though he really didn't have an abundance of financial resources, mostly because there were 5 boys eating everything within sight, he always shared the fruits of his labor with us, even at the expense of his own desires. He loved all manners of machines, airplanes to boats, of course race cars, hot rods. He prided himself on being self-sufficient. He could fix, I'm not kidding, just about anything. It was a very common sight to see him sitting on the edge of his lazy boy in the house on Lena Avenue, glasses on kind of the tip of his nose, the TV tray, workbench, soldering something, either like a circuit board from the toaster or maybe the Heathkit stereo he built himself or something from the TV, of course assuming Oakley couldn't do it. He would be dissecting some mechanical toy that mysteriously would get broken. It was him.
Yeah, we know who did it.
And then he was a craftsman. He made work German silver. There's actually some examples of his work over there that you could see. And he found ways to accomplish big tasks with little resources. He was a very utilitarian man. One time we converted a swing set into an A-frame that we used to turn our boat upside down to fix some fiberglass damage on it. We trimmed, Cliff knows this. Cliff, where'd you go? There he is. There he is. We had these 2 huge fruitless mulberry trees in our front yard that would grow like nobody's business. And every other year, if I remember right, we'd have to cut them down and put them into chunks and firewood and blah, 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 blah. The whole thing with a circular saw with a blade from like 1936 that hadn't been sharpened since ever. And that's just what he did. He took it. You know, he'd say, "Hey, I need you to sand something." And so you get the sandpaper, you'd be sanding. And then it would just be like notebook paper. "Dad, can I get more sandpaper?" "There's still 2 grains of sand on there. Use it all," you know. That's the way he was. And then one funny characteristic, because we got to tell the good and the colorful too. He had an unabashed expression of displeasure or pain when working on cars. To be with him in the garage was a life lesson in the articulate expression of raw emotion. When a frustration or pain presented itself, he would express it quite forcefully, and then a second later, he'd be back to normal. You guys ever seen the Christmas Story movie when Ralphie's dad's in the basement? Our life. When he quit working on cars, I was wondering, okay, that part of his life is done. Then he took up golf. He was a selfless man. Hang on one second. My throat's just dry, that's all, I swear.